Hello, Jeremy here, and welcome to episode 20. Turning on the volume a little bit. Okay, episode 20, as you can tell, is the Sprite sheets. So this is what is referred to as a Sprite sheet. It has the image for the character. In this case, we're going to use a Link lookalike. And it has, going across in this row, it has all of the steps in the animation for Link walking down. This one walking left, this one walking up, this one walking right. This is an idle image facing down, so when the character's this is supposed to play when there's no character input. It goes idle. This is looking left, it's looking up. Can't really see anything different. And then looking right. So this is the Sprite sheet we're going to deal with and manage today. I kind of cheated and did the code yesterday, but it wasn't really cheating. I was really tired yesterday, so I could only code. I couldn't code and talk at the same time. But let this be a good lesson to you that even if you're feeling down and not feeling very good, you can still code a little bit and make some progress for your project or whatever you're coding. Keep up the habit of coding. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you what it looks like. It looks like this, with Link walking down and moving around on my mouse, which is cool. Okay, so there's that. Now, let me talk about this for 1 second. Notice the checkerboard pattern in the background. This is how GIMP, which was the UI, the graphical, like Photoshop, but open source. I have nothing against Photoshop. Photoshop is a very good product. I just don't want to pay for it. That's all. It's actually more convenient to use, and I'm better at it. But you know, that will cost money. So these checkered dots is a transparent background. So when we draw with something that's transparent, it just lets the background come through. And that's a property of this image and the fact that it's a PNG. PNGs allow transparencies. Transparency is another byte for each pixel. You know how there's red, blue, and green, or red, green, blue, or red, green, blue. And the final byte can be what's called alpha, which is the alpha channel. So each pixel can be transparent or not, or any level of transparency in between. A 255 is fully opaque, or FF hexadecimal, or all ones in binary, 8 ones in binary. And that is fully opaque. A 0 is fully transparent. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the code editor. Okay, so what I did yesterday was I made a class called the SpriteGrid. The SpriteGrid is not a sprite itself. What the point of the SpriteGrid is the ability to get a sprite from that image that's just one cell of the grid. And that's why I have this cell and row, comma, column. And when you make a SpriteGrid, you tell how many rows and how many columns it has. So if we look back at the image, And we make sure OBS is not dumb. I don't know why OBS does that. Okay, there we go. All right, I have no idea. So if you look at it, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 columns. So when we use this as a sprite, the basis for the SpriteGrid, you want to say there are 8 rows and 10 columns when we make this. Okay, so let's go back to the code. So that's what we do. We give it the sprite, which was all of the links as one sheet, so that's the sprite sheet. And we tell it how many rows and how many columns it has. So we go ahead and we store the image from the sprite. We store how many rows and columns we have. This gets the width and the height in pixels of how many pixels there are for the whole sprite sheet, which is all the links. And then we do a calculation where we're calculating the size for how many pixels wide is a column and how many pixels wide is a row. This division symbol means integer division. Integer division is no decimal point. We just chop off the decimal point. And I can show that real quick in the repo Python. So if we want to take 1 divided by 2, that's 0.5, but 1 integer division by 2 is 0. 1 modulo 2, that's the remainder. So these are related operations. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 5 divided by 2 is 2. So you can definitely see that these are integer operations. No decimal point. Okay, so that is what we're using to our advantage because we can't have 0.5 of a pixel. Okay, that is why we're using them, because we want to use full pixels. Okay, and then from there, we use this cell method against the SpriteGrid to go to a row and a column and basically say, I want a sprite from this row and column, and give me that sprite. So what it does is it gets the width and the height of how big the sprite is going to be. It makes a new sprite, and then it uses this function. So self.sheet is the surface that we've been using. And what subsurface does is it shares the underlying surface, but it constrains the X, Y, width, and height. So you give it a rectangle. Let's go back to GIMP. So the idea is you give it a rectangle. You say, okay, this rectangle is my new subsurface. So when it returns me the surface, it only thinks that this is the surface it has on that rectangle, but it's sharing the underlying image. So if there's any change on the subsurface or the full surface, then there's a change. They're affecting the same thing. There's going to be changes in both. So this is what's going on is we're taking the rect and we're going, okay, I want the image at 0, 0. So go move the rect here. Okay, 0, 0. 0, 1. Say 0, 2, 0, 4, 4, 4. So that's what we're doing with this SpriteGrid, is we're using it to get the images that we want from the sprite sheet. Okay, and then go back to Emacs. Adjust the rectangle so it's 0, 0 with height, which makes sense. Just a new rectangle for that that little smaller subimage, and then we return that as the sprite. So that's what this class does. It just manages making new sprites based on where it is in the sprite sheet. I'm calling this SpriteGrid because it's a grid overlaid on the sheet. So I figured that would be a good name. Instead of sprite sheet, it's a SpriteGrid. Okay. So down here is where the other change happened. What I did is I loaded up the sprite here. So this loads up the image. And then I created a SpriteGrid with those sprites as the basis and said it was 8 by 10, which is correct. Then I said the animation sprites. Before this was square, 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 square. Now this is all column 4, 0 through 9. So all the animations for row 4. This is row 4, 0 through 9. And you saw that this was Link looking down. And that's it. Then we went back to this guy. So it was the same code as before. I just updated what sprites were there. So going back to what I showed you earlier, we can cut out of that presenter, and we have Link. Walking on the logo. Okay. That's it for this episode. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do next episode. It will probably be pull out the animation object. Yeah, probably. So we'll look forward to doing the animation object and then possibly state so we can get a rotation, make Link face up, make him face down, and go through the different animations based on its state, what way he's facing. So that's what we can look forward to. So I hope you have a good day, and see you later.